So fresh off the presses, the California Post launches today. It's a brand new 7 days a week digital and print newspaper designed to bring the hard-charging, plain-spoken journalism of its sister publication, the New York Post, to the West Coast. Man, is it needed. California Post opinion editor Joel Pollak is here, and editor-in-chief Nick Papst join us right now. Both you guys, congratulations. Joel, what should everyone know about your mission statement with the California Post?
Well, we really want to bring common sense journalism back to California, and Nick has put together an incredible team of all-star journalists, absolutely the most incredible people I've ever worked with, very hard to keep up with. My job is to run the opinion section, and we really want to be a sounding board. You know, everyone's talking about the Rams in LA, but Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr said last night that it's too bad we're all at each other's throats. And that's because we don't have enough places to come back and find out about each other's views. And the California Post wants to provide a platform for views that have been suppressed for too long and to make sure that people have a voice. And Nick and the team he's brought to this task have really done an incredible job. We're very proud of the paper today.
I mean, you can't go out in California, Nick, and not think about entertainment, Hollywood, and where it's gone. That's also a story, but still a lot of the who's who of Hollywood is there. And that's the cover of your first ever California Post. Tell me about it.
Yeah, we've got a really good exclusive today, Brian. I'm really excited to shine a light on a scandal inside Hollywood. It involves a couple of brothers and a fallout, and we tell the story of what led to that fallout. It was put together by our new team called Page Six Hollywood. Their job is really simple: to tell the stories behind the scenes of what's happening in this amazing, really important business, and tell the stories that others would not tell, and tell it fearlessly. And that's going to be a really important part of the California Post. We're telling the stories others won't. We're shining a light on the powerful.
And by the way, the Safdie brothers, they broke up evidently over some underage actress, a disagreement they have. Is that the foundation of that story?
Yeah, that is the foundation. It's put together by one of our new recruits, the Page Six Hollywood team, and it's going to be a story that will have a lot of resonance around California. It'll surprise a lot of people. One of those brothers is now up for an Oscar nomination as well.
So I tell you, Joel, good time to launch because California cares about football again. I was out there when the Raiders and Rams both left, but as the Rams get their heart broken in the conference finals, there were huge viewing parties. They care about the Rams again. This is an exciting team that was one step short, and that's the back cover, right, Joel?
Right, and we had a unique circumstance going into the playoffs where there were 3 California teams, and it was possible that 2 of them could have met in the Super Bowl, but California will be hosting the Super Bowl anyway. And California is a football state. The old Pac-10 might not be what it was, but you have incredible talent coming out of California and incredible teams, and the fan base is there. So it's definitely something our readers are interested in.
And here's what people are going to love. And, you know, the LA Times is never going to write stuff like this, but they'll just outline how bad things are in California. One of your editorials today, look at the cost that people are paying in California. Californians pay 124% more to own a home, 50% more to rent an apartment, 50% more on gas, 27% more on food, 48% more for water, 45% more for taxes. That's not partisan. That's fact. Right, Neil? Nick?
Yeah, and that's a really important thing. We're going to tell the unvarnished truth about what's happening here in California. People are leaving California. This is a great state, and it's an amazing city in Los Angeles where we're based. But it's not what it was, Brian. And we need to shine a light and work out why it's not like it should be and make sure we get the problems fixed. We've got problems of homelessness, we've got problems of crime, and we've got problems that we are completely overtaxed.
Joel, in my opinion, people need a voice. Especially now with redistricting, they're going to have less of a voice in theory. After this election day, they could lose a bunch of seats. Do you feel as though you're providing a voice to people that just don't have an opposing party?
Absolutely. There are 40% of California voters who voted for President Donald Trump. This is still a blue state, but that's a significant chunk of the electorate who don't feel that their perspective is reflected in the existing media choices out there, at least not in the mainstream. And we are providing that alternative, but we're not just a paper for one side or the other.
I hear you.
We are a paper that represents Californians of every political party who've just decided it's time to see some changes in our society and our government, and who've decided that we deserve better.
And I'll tell you what, Nick, what's interesting is you have a governor, even though his record is dicey at best, who seems to be the front runner to be run for president, Gavin Newsom. So that's going to bring some added scrutiny. And you have very interesting and emerging, maybe Democratic star in San Francisco as a mayor, who seems to be intent on cleaning up the place effectively while being a Democrat.
Yeah, we've seen a pretty good example up there in San Francisco, Brian. The mayor is actually moving to try to work with the president, which is terrific. But he's also cleaning up the mess. We did a story in today's paper and online. There was a problem they had up there with the homelessness, but what the council was spending money on was giving out alcohol to homeless alcoholics. He cleaned it up. Give him credit for that. We need more of that common sense actions by our senior people here in California. And our job, and California will be really important in the national debate, but also really important in the economy of the United States. We need more people who have common sense, and we'll make sure we bring out the common sense in people. The views that we have are largely held by everyday Californians, but right now they don't think they've got a voice. We're going to be that voice.
And Joel, the thing is, the whole world's going to be looking at, really the whole world's going to be looking at San Francisco because the Super Bowl, the hype, they've hosted before, a lot of scrutiny is going to be on that city. What do you see your responsibility as you try to get people to understand that California has their version of the New York Post?
Well, there's the Super Bowl, but there's also the Olympics here in Los Angeles in 2028. And there really are questions emerging about the cooperation between local authorities and federal authorities. And this is going to happen at every event. We've got the World Cup as well. And we have to iron out this issue, which has erupted over ICE. And in California, we have a variety of perspectives on the issue. Our job is to make sure that debate happens in a respectful way where Americans can come together and exchange views and understand what needs to happen for us to move forward.
Wow, yeah, that's right. The World Cup's going to be there. The U.S. team's going to be playing. Is going to be playing in Los Angeles, at least one of those games, maybe more. Guys, thanks so much. An exciting day. Joel Pollak and Nick Papps, I believe you guys are going to be a bestseller with a must-read for everyone in California. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.